The Zitharan Queen's feather crest flared crimson as I stepped into the throne chamber, and every warrior in the hall shifted their weight to their striking legs. My daughter Maya's hand tightened in mine. She was 7 years old and shouldn't have been here, but the childcare pod had malfunctioned 30 minutes before the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. I had 3 choices: miss the summit that would decide whether humanity joined the Galactic Council or faced isolation, leave Maya with strangers from a species we'd met 6 days ago, or bring her and pray she stayed quiet. The Queen's throne sat on a platform of volcanic glass surrounded by her 12 spears, warriors whose bone-white armor bore kill marks from campaigns across 4 spiral arms. Each mark represented not just a death, but a species that had offended Zitharan honor. I counted over 200 marks on the nearest guard's breastplate alone. Ambassador Chen of Earth, the Queen's translator device buzzed. Her actual voice underneath sounded like wind through crystal caves. You arrive with unauthorized personnel. Every human instinct screamed at me to scoop her up and run, but showing fear before a Zitharan monarch meant automatic rejection. Their psychology assessment had been clear. They respected strength, directness, and unshakable composure. Apology was weakness, explanation was excuse. My daughter, I said simply. She will observe in silence. The Queen's secondary eyes, the ones that detected thermal signatures and could allegedly see lies in blood flow, focused on Maya. The hall held perhaps 300 Zitharans, ministers, military commanders, trade delegates, all waiting to see if Earth's first real chance at alliance would collapse before it began. Proceed, the Queen said finally. I exhaled slowly. The negotiation document felt slick in my palm. Humanity had spent 18 months preparing this proposal, running simulations, consulting with the 3 species who'd successfully joined the Council in the last century. The Zetharans controlled access to the Kepler Strait, the only stable faster-than-light corridor in our region. Without their approval, Earth would take 300 years to reach the next nearest pathway. With it, we'd have access to medicines that could cure diseases we couldn't even diagnose yet, technologies that could clean our poisoned oceans, knowledge that could... I need to tell you something. I gave her hand a gentle squeeze, our signal for wait, and started walking toward the presentation platform. The Queen's spears watched every step. Their grip positions on their weapons never changed, but their head angles tracked us with predatory precision. I'd memorized their 17 formal greeting gestures. I knew that presenting the proposal with my arms at a 45-degree angle conveyed respect while maintaining authority, that making eye contact for exactly 3 seconds showed confidence without challenge, that... Mama? It's important, Maya said, louder. The nearest spear's feather crest rippled. In Zitharan body language, that was the equivalent of a human's hand moving toward a concealed weapon. Maya, please. I kept my voice level, calm. We were 15 feet from the platform. But, Mama! Silence. The Queen's voice boomed without translation, a shriek that made the floor vibrate. Maya flinched but didn't cry. She'd always been brave, even when she shouldn't be. I stopped walking. The temperature in the hall seemed to drop. In the peripheral vision that my training had sharpened, I saw the Queen's primary advisor's crest go flat against her skull, a posture that every briefing document had labeled as extreme displeasure. The Queen rose from her throne, 9 feet of corded muscle and ceremonial blades. Your offspring cannot control itself. This insults my hall. She's 7 years old, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. She's learning. Learning requires discipline. You demonstrate neither. The Queen descended 3 steps. The spear shifted formation, creating a corridor that pointed directly at us, at Maya. Everything we'd worked for. The research stations we could build, the colony ships we could finally make viable, the children who wouldn't die of Render's syndrome if we could just access Zitharan medical databases, all of it balanced on what I said next. Maya tugged my hand. Mama, I just wanted to say... Maya... Not another word. I crouched down, breaking every rule about maintaining height dominance in Scytharan spaces. I promise you can tell me everything later, but right now you have to be absolutely silent. Can you do that for me? Her brown eyes were huge. She nodded. I stood, turned to the Queen, opened my mouth to salvage what I could. Your hair is beautiful, Maya said clearly, loudly, directly to the Queen. The hall fell silent in shock. No one moved. No one breathed. The Queen stood frozen on the steps, her 4 eyes locked on my daughter. The spear's grips tightened on their weapons. The advisor's crest flared so red it looked like it was bleeding. I didn't grab Maya. Didn't apologize. Didn't move at all. In the 3 heartbeats of absolute silence, my mind raced through every piece of cultural intelligence we had on Zytherans. The word Maya had used, beautiful, translated to their language as something closer to worthy of awe. But that could mean admiration or challenge, respect or mockery, depending on context we didn't fully understand. The Queen's crest began to rise. I was a dead woman, and Earth's chance had just died with us. Then the Queen did something I'd never seen in any footage. She laughed. Not a human laugh. A series of crystalline chimes that echoed through the chamber like wind chimes in a storm. "The offspring speaks truth," the Queen said. She touched one talon to her elaborate crest, woven through with stones that caught the light. "For this I would hear your proposal, Ambassador Chen. Not because you have come prepared with your words and documents, but because your child sees clearly what all your diplomats were trained to ignore." I blinked. Beside me, Maya squeezed my hand, and I realized she'd known exactly what she was doing. Somehow, in 7 years of watching me practice speeches and study alien customs, she'd understood something I'd missed, that the Zytharans valued honest observation more than careful protocol. The Queen gestured to the platform. "Speak, human, and perhaps your offspring can teach my generals something about strategic clarity." Maya smiled up at me, and I thought maybe, just maybe, we were going to survive this after all. The platform felt different now. Less like a judgment seat and more like a conversation space. The Queen had returned to her throne, but her posture was relaxed. Her spears remained alert, but their crests showed neutral colors, grays and soft blues instead of aggressive reds. I activated the holographic display and began my presentation. 3 months of Earth's resources, compressed into visual data they could absorb in minutes. Our planet's location, population, technological level, our medical needs, our trade goods, our promise to respect council law, everything we were, reduced to negotiating points. Maya sat cross-legged at my feet, perfectly still now, watching the holograms with wide-eyed fascination. The Zytherans watched her almost as much as they watched my data. Halfway through the resource allocation section, the Queen raised 1 talon. "Pause." I have questions. This was normal. Expected. I'd prepared for 17 categories of inquiry. "Your offspring. She is unaltered?" I frowned. "I don't understand the question, Your Majesty." "No neural amplification. No cognitive conditioning." The Queen leaned forward. "She speaks as herself, yes?" "Earth doesn't have that technology yet. Maya is." I glanced down at my daughter. "She's exactly as nature made her." A ripple passed through the assembled Zytherans. The advisor's crest flashed yellow. Surprise or interest. The documents had been unclear. Then she observed my crest and formulated authentic aesthetic judgment in real time, without cultural programming. The Queen's 4 eyes focused on Maya. "Child, why did you speak when your mother commanded silence?" Maya looked at me. I nodded, uncertain what else to do. "Because it was true," Maya said simply. "And sometimes true things are more important than quiet things." Louder this time. The Queen's crest rose higher, cycling through colors I didn't have names for. "Your species is younger than our youngest client state," the Queen said, addressing me again. "You have no fleet worth mentioning. Your technology cannot match our oldest archives. Your medicine still relies on chemical intervention." Why should the Council grant you access to the Kepler Strait? This was the central question, the one that every simulation had prepared me for. I had 12 different answers ready, each calibrated for different mood indicators, different political contexts, but Maya's words echoed in my mind. Sometimes true things are more important. I dismissed the holographic display. "Because we need it," I said. "Not for conquest or prestige, for survival. There are children dying on Earth right now from diseases we can't cure. There are ecosystems collapsing that we don't have the tools to save. We're asking for help, Your Majesty. We're admitting we can't do this alone." Thoughtful instead of shocked. "Honesty," the Queen said softly. "Your species leads with honesty. This is unexpected." The other approach wasn't working, I admitted. Maya helped me see that. The Queen stood again, but this time her movement was fluid, not threatening. She descended the full staircase, each step deliberate, until she stood 10 feet from us. Close enough that I could see the individual feather patterns in her crest, the scars on her scaled arms, the weight of centuries in her primary eyes. "The Zytherans value many qualities, Ambassador Chen. Strength in battle, wisdom in governance, honor in all dealings." She tilted her head, studying Maya. But above all these, we value Kedrex, the courage to speak truth when silence would be safer. Your offspring demonstrated this. You have now done the same. Draft preliminary access terms. Standard probationary period, full council oversight, limited straight usage. If humans can maintain this level of authenticity in formal council chambers, perhaps they deserve a chance. My knees almost buckled. Maya jumped up, grinning, and I had to resist the urge to hug her until we were safely back on our ship. "Thank you, Your Majesty," I managed. "We won't disappoint you." "See that you don't." The Queen's crest flashed amber. "And, Ambassador, bring your offspring to the formal sessions. She may prove more valuable than your entire diplomatic corps." The private quarters they assigned us were in the guest wing, with walls that shifted colors based on occupant mood, apparently a Zythran hospitality feature. Right now they were cycling through relieved blues and exhausted grays, which seemed about right. Maya was supposed to be sleeping, but I could hear her humming in the sleeping chamber. I sat in the main room, reviewing the preliminary terms the advisor had sent. They were better than I dared hope. 5-year probationary access to the Strait, with full rights if we maintained peaceful relations and met trade quotas, medical database access starting immediately. Educational exchanges, technology partnerships, everything we needed to give Earth a real future. My communicator chimed. Director Okafor's face appeared, calling from Earth orbit. "Tell me you didn't just torpedo 18 months of work." I didn't torpedo it. I couldn't keep the smile off my face. Maya saved it. I explained what happened. Okafor's expression shifted from concern to disbelief to something like awe. A 7-year-old called the Zitharon Queen beautiful, and it worked? The word translated differently than I thought, and apparently they test for authentic observation. Maya's comment proved we're capable of seeing past our own cultural conditioning. It was unintentional brilliance, intentional enough that the Queen wants her at formal sessions. I can't bring a child to every council meeting. She needs school, friends, a normal life. She just secured humanity's future in one sentence. I think she's earned some flexibility. Okafor's tone softened.
But you're right. We'll work something out.
For now, get some rest. You've earned it. The call ended. I stood, stretched, and walked to the sleeping chamber. Maya was curled under the thermal blanket, but her eyes were open. "Can't sleep?" I asked. "The walls are pretty. They keep changing." She sat up. "Mama, am I in trouble?" I sat on the edge of the bed. "Why would you be in trouble?" "I talked when you said to be quiet." "Maya, I chose my words carefully. What you did was incredibly dangerous. If the Queen had reacted differently, we could have been killed. You understand that, right? But it also saved everything we came here to do. And I need to understand, did you really think her hair was beautiful, or were you trying to help the meeting? Both?" Her crest had blue stones that matched the floor, and red ones that looked like the sunset on the beach we went to last summer. I thought she should know. Someone noticed, because everyone else was looking scared at her warriors instead. 7 years old, and she'd somehow intuited that the Zitharans valued aesthetic observation. That their queen might appreciate genuine admiration from a child who had nothing to gain from flattery. "You're pretty remarkable, you know that?" I smoothed her hair back. "But from now on, when I say to be silent, I need you to really think about whether breaking that rule is worth the risk. Can you do that?" "I'll try," she yawned. "Mama, are we going to be okay now? All of us on Earth?" "I think so, sweetheart. You helped make sure of it." She smiled and snuggled back down. Within minutes, her breathing evened out into sleep. I sat watching her for a while, this small person who'd faced down an alien queen with nothing but honest observation and perfect timing. My communicator chimed again, quietly. A message from the Queen's advisor. Her Majesty requests the child's presence at tomorrow's cultural exchange session. Attendance optional, but recommended. The Queen believes your Maya may help our peoples understand each other in ways protocol cannot achieve. I looked at my sleeping daughter, then back at the message. Tomorrow I would worry about the implications, the precedents, the complications of bringing a child into interstellar politics. Tonight I would just be grateful that Maya existed exactly as she was, unfiltered, observant, and brave enough to speak truth when everyone else chose silence. The walls shifted to soft greens as I settled into my own bed. Contentment colors, apparently. The Zytharans had that right, at least. The cultural exchange session was nothing like the formal summit. We met in a garden space, or what Zitherans considered a garden, with crystalline plants that chimed in the wind and pools of water that flowed upward before misting into the air. About 30 beings attended, Zitherans, a few from species I didn't recognize, and 2 other human ambassadors who had arrived overnight to help with the preliminary negotiations. Maya held my hand, but wasn't shy anymore. She watched everything with naked curiosity, occasionally asking questions in a whisper that I answered as best I could. The queen arrived without ceremony, accompanied by only 2 spears. She wore simpler regalia than yesterday, though her crest was still elaborately decorated. Ambassador Chen, young Maya. She inclined her head to both of us. Welcome. Today we share cultural practices. That understanding may grow between our peoples. What followed was fascinating and occasionally bewildering. A Scythian musician played an instrument that looked like a cross between a harp and a wind chime, producing sounds that made my chest vibrate. A delegate from the Torvin Collective demonstrated their gesture language, which involved color-changing skin patterns. One of the human ambassadors, Dr. Kowalski, gave a presentation on Earth's musical diversity that had everyone listening in rapt silence. Then the queen turned to Maya. Child, you observe keenly. What do you see in my gardens that others miss? Maya looked around, suddenly the center of attention again. I started to suggest she could decline, but she was already walking toward one of the upward-flowing fountains. This one's sad, she said, pointing at a crystalline plant near the fountain's base. Its chimes were softer than the others, slightly off-key. Every Zitharan in the garden went still. The queen approached, studying the plant.
Explain your observation.
Its sound is wrong. Like when my friend Emma's violin needed new strings. Everything was almost right, but a little broken. Maya looked up at the queen. Is it sick? The queen's crest flashed colors I was starting to recognize as surprise. She knelt, and examined the plant closely. After a moment, she made a sharp gesture. One of her spears approached with what looked like a medical scanner. Root blight in early stages, the spear reported. Undetectable by visual inspection. The sound variance is our first indicator. The queen looked at Maya with all 4 eyes. You may have saved this plant's life, child. Root blight spreads rapidly. By the time we noticed visible symptoms, the entire garden might have been compromised. I'm glad I could help. The queen stood, addressing the full gathering. The humans demonstrate a valuable trait. They observe without preconception. They speak without political calculation. This is rare among species who seek council membership. Ambassador Kowalski caught my eye, raising an eyebrow that clearly said, "What have you started?" The session continued, but the dynamic had shifted. Other delegates began asking Maya questions, simple ones, appropriate for a child, but genuine inquiries about how she saw things. What did she notice about their clothes? Their movements? Their spaces? Each time Maya answered with straightforward honesty that somehow cut through diplomatic pretense. She told the Torvin delegate that their skin patterns were beautiful, but sometimes changed so fast it was hard to follow. She asked one of the Zytheran ministers why he stood so far from everyone else, and he admitted he was uncomfortable in garden settings, preferring the mountains of his home province. Small observations. Simple truths. But watching the reactions, I realized what the queen had meant about Maya teaching her generals strategic clarity. In a culture built on elaborate protocol and careful positioning, a child's unfiltered observations were like a sensor that detected what everyone else trained themselves to ignore. After 2 hours, the queen called an end to the session. As beings dispersed, she approached me directly. I would make a proposal, Ambassador Chen. She's going to ask for Maya to stay, to become some kind of cultural liaison, and I'll have to figure out how to say no to the being who controls humanity's future. Your daughter has a gift for observation, but more importantly, she has the courage to share what she observes. This is Catrax in its purest form. The queen's crest rippled. I would like to establish a youth observation program. Human children and Zitharan younglings, learning to see each other's worlds without the filters of formal diplomacy. Your Maya would not be alone in this. She would be among peers, learning together. I blinked. A youth exchange program? More than exchange. Collaborative observation. Cultural learning that begins before prejudice can calcify. The queen glanced at Maya, who was examining another crystalline plant with intense focus. Our peoples have much to teach each other. Our children may be better teachers than our diplomats. It wasn't what I expected. It was better. I'd need to discuss it with Maya and with Earth's education authorities, I said carefully, but the concept has merit. The young must consent to their own paths. The queen's crest flashed approval green. Discuss it. Consider it. But know that regardless of your answer, Earth has already proven something valuable to the Council. That youth and wisdom need not be opposites. That seeing clearly sometimes matters more than seeing much. She touched one talon to her crest, the gesture Maya had inspired. Your daughter reminded me why we created the Council in the first place. To learn from differences, not merely to tolerate them. The transport back to Earth took 6 days. Maya spent most of it drawing pictures of the Zitharan Gardens, of the Queen's Crest, of the upward-flowing fountains. She'd made friends with one of the Scytheron younglings during the cultural session, and they'd exchanged communication codes so they could keep talking. I spent the time in meetings with Kowalski and the other human delegates, hammering out implementation details for the Straight Access Agreement. Every session started with someone making a joke about bringing 7-year-olds to their next difficult negotiation. But underneath the humor was genuine interest in the Queen's proposal. The youth observation program could be revolutionary, not just for human-Zitharon relations, but as a model for how new species integrated into the Council. Director Okafor called on the 4th day, her expression serious. I've been reading the proposals. The Council wants Maya to participate in the program. I know, we're still discussing it. Chen, Okafor hesitated. I need you to understand the position this puts us in. The Queen has tied some of the treaty's more favorable terms to the implementation of this youth program. Not explicitly, but the correlation is clear in the diplomatic notes. They're using my daughter as a bargaining chip. No, they're recognizing her value and building it into the framework. There's a difference. Okafor's tone softened. I'm not saying you have to agree. I'm saying that whatever you decide, Earth will support it. We're not going to sacrifice a child for treaty terms, even favorable ones. But it would help.
It would.
But that's not your responsibility. Okafor leaned closer to the camera. You've already done enough, Chen. More than enough. Whatever happens next is your and Maya's choice, not a diplomatic obligation. After the call ended, I found Maya in the observation deck, watching the stars stream past as we traveled through the Kepler Strait, the very pathway her comment had helped secure. Mama, can I ask you something? Always, sweetheart. The Queen's program. You don't want me to do it. It's not that I don't want you to. I'm worried about what it might mean. You're 7. You should be going to school, playing with friends, being a kid, not representing humanity in alien politics, but I liked it. Maya's voice was small but certain. Everyone was nice to me, and I helped with the sick plant. And the Zitharon youngling, her name is Krishashara, she wants to show me her world. I want to show her Earth, too. What about your friends at home? Your school? But, Mama, she looked up at me. You always said that doing important things sometimes means doing hard things. Isn't this important? 7 years old, and she was already wiser than I'd been at 27? It is important, I admitted. But you're also important, Maya. Not because of what you can do for humanity or for treaties, but because you're you. I don't want anyone to forget that, including you. I won't forget. She took my hand. Can I try it? Just for a little while? And if I don't like it, I can come home? We talked for another hour, working through details, concerns, fears. In the end, I promised to support whatever she decided, but that we'd do it together. No one would pressure her. No one would use her. And the moment it stopped being good for her, we'd walk away from the entire program, treaty implications or not. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to watching the stars. I sat alone in the observation deck after she left, thinking about the strange path that had brought us here. A malfunctioning childcare pod, a child who couldn't stay silent, a queen who valued honest observation. Maybe that was how the universe worked sometimes. Not through careful plans and strategic positioning, but through unexpected moments when someone brave enough to speak simple truth changed everything. My communicator chimed. A message from the Queen herself sent on a private channel. Ambassador Chen, regardless of your daughter's choice about the program, I wanted you to know she has already achieved what your diplomats could not. She reminded us that wisdom wears many faces, and that truth spoken in innocence carries more weight than strategy spoken in calculation. Earth is fortunate to have her. I hope you know that. I saved the message, then walked back to our quarters where Maya was already asleep, dreaming of upward-flowing fountains and crystalline gardens. Tomorrow we would reach Earth. Tomorrow the real negotiations would begin, the implementation of treaties and programs and cultural exchanges. Tomorrow I would have to answer questions from officials and educators and politicians about what had happened on the Scytheran homeworld. But tonight I was just a mother watching her daughter sleep, grateful that she existed exactly as she was, observant, brave, and unfiltered enough to see beauty in an alien queen's hair when everyone else saw only threat. The universe, I decided, could use more of that clarity. Earth's orbit was crowded with ships when we arrived. The news had spread faster than light somehow. Maybe through the same diplomatic channels that had transmitted the preliminary treaty, maybe through sheer human excitement at finally having a chance. Our transport docked at Gateway Station, and the moment the airlock opened, we were surrounded by reporters, officials, and curious onlookers who wanted to see the ambassador and the child who'd changed everything. Security moved us through the crowd quickly, but not before I heard the whispers. That's her. That's the little girl who told the queen. The story had grown in the telling, I could tell. By tomorrow would probably involve Maya single-handedly negotiating the entire treaty while I stood uselessly in the corner. The reality was both simpler and more complicated than any story could capture. Director Okafor met us in a private briefing room, along with Earth's Secretary of Interstellar Affairs and a woman I didn't recognize. Severe features, gray suit, the look of someone who made difficult decisions for a living. Ambassador Chen, Maya. Okafor smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Welcome home. This is Dr. Sarah Winters, Director of Educational Integration. The woman stood, extending her hand. I'd heard remarkable things about you both, particularly you, Maya. Maya shook her hand solemnly, the way I'd taught her for formal occasions. But I could see the exhaustion creeping in. 6 days of travel, the weight of attention, the strangeness of being suddenly important to people who'd never known she existed. Can we do the briefings tomorrow? I asked. It's been a long trip. But Dr. Winters needs just a few minutes. It's about the youth observation program. We sat. Maya climbed into the chair beside me, her feet not quite touching the floor. Dr. Winters pulled up a holographic display. The Zitherans have sent detailed proposals for the program structure. Its comprehensive educational protocols, cultural safety measures, family involvement frameworks. They've clearly put significant thought into making this work. But I heard the unspoken word. But we need to be careful. This would be unprecedented. We'd be sending children, including very young children like Maya, into extended contact with species we're still learning to understand. The risks aren't just physical. We're talking about psychological impact, cultural confusion, potential trauma from witnessing practices that don't align with human values. The Zitherans have child protection protocols, I said. I reviewed them during the trip. They're actually more stringent than some Earth nations. On paper, yes. In practice, we don't know how they'd respond to a human child in distress. We don't know if their understanding of psychological well-being aligns with ours. Dr. Winters looked at Maya. I'm not trying to kill this program before it starts. I'm trying to make sure we do it right. Listening. Now she spoke up. What if we start small? Everyone looked at her. Start small? Dr.
Winters echoed.
Like how Mama lets me try new foods. Just a little bit first, to see if I like it. Maybe I could visit the Zitheran homeworld for a short time. A week or two. With Mama there. And if it goes okay, then we could do more. How to the mouths of babes, I thought. It was exactly the kind of measured approach that could work, proof of concept without overcommitment. Dr. Winters actually smiled. That's remarkably sensible. A pilot program with limited duration and heavy oversight. Not as ambassador, as her mother. Non-negotiable. You'd be able to observe how the Zitherans interact with human children in informal settings, gather data that would inform the larger program structure. We talked for another 30 minutes, sketching out possibilities. A 2-week visit, Maya and perhaps 2 other human children, with parent chaperones and continuous monitoring. Cultural activities, not diplomatic ones. Friendships, not negotiations. By the end, even Dr. Winters looked cautiously optimistic. I'll present this to the council tomorrow, she said. But I think you may have found our path forward, Maya. Small steps first. After they left, Okafor stayed behind. You doing okay, Chen? Really? I laughed tiredly. I brought my 7-year-old to an alien throne room. She called the queen beautiful, and now we're designing an interstellar youth program. I have no idea if I'm okay. For what it's worth, you did something incredible. Not just securing the treaty. You showed the galaxy what humanity could be at our best. Honest, curious, willing to learn. Okafor paused. And you raised a kid who could see beauty in an alien queen while everyone else was calculating threat assessments? That's worth something. She's the incredible one. I just tried not to mess her up too badly. You succeeded. Okafor stood to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Shen? The media's going to want interviews. Feel free to say no to all of them. You've done enough performing for a while. The trip from Gateway Station to our apartment in New Seattle was blessedly quiet, arranged through back channels and private transports. Home felt smaller than I remembered, but infinitely more comfortable than any space station or alien guest quarters. Maya fell asleep almost immediately, still in her clothes, clutching the drawings she'd made during the trip. I covered her with a blanket and stood in her doorway, watching her breathe. My daughter, the girl who'd changed history by noticing what everyone else overlooked. Who'd been brave when I'd asked for silence, and right when I'd been prepared to be wrong. The next weeks would be complicated. Negotiations with the Zitherans about the pilot program, consultations with child psychologists and cultural experts, media management, educational planning, 1,000 details that would determine whether this unprecedented experiment succeeded or failed. But tonight, we were home, safe, together, and tomorrow, whatever came, we'd face it the same way we'd faced the Zithran Queen, with honest observation, quiet courage, and the simple belief that sometimes the truest things are worth saying, even when silence would be easier. I pulled Maya's door half closed and walked to my own room. Through the window, I could see the lights of New Seattle spreading toward the ocean, and beyond that, the stars where we'd just been, where we'd go again soon, if Maya chose it. The universe was bigger than I'd ever imagined, filled with beings stranger and more wonderful than childhood dreams could capture, but it was also smaller than fear made it seem, connected by simple moments of recognition, a child noticing beauty, a queen choosing to listen, a mother deciding to trust. My communicator buzzed one more time. Krishara, the Zytheron youngling, sending Maya a message. I hope you come back soon. I want to show you the singing caves, and I want to hear your earth music. I saved it for Maya to see in the morning. She'd be delighted. And maybe that was what the future looked like. Children from different worlds wanting to share their wonders, finding friendship and observation, building bridges that their parents were still learning to cross. It wasn't the future I'd planned when I took the ambassador position. It was better. I fell asleep thinking of upward-flowing fountains and crystalline gardens, of 7-year-old wisdom and the weight of simple truth, of a hall falling silent in shock and then filling with laughter. Humanity had found its way to the stars not through superior technology or strategic brilliance, but through a child who dared to speak kindness in a moment that demanded silence. That felt right somehow. That felt like exactly who we should be.